All right, let's get the microphone test out of the way here. Let's see if everyone can hear me okay across the various streams, that being YouTube, Twitch, and X.com. And we do have a few private streams going. Let me know if you guys can hear me over there. The private streams are just for those that cannot access those websites from their current locations. And let me know if you can hear me okay. And we're going to get started in about, like a minute and a half or so. Alright, so it seems that audio is working good. I'm going to go ahead and get the music under control. We're going to get started here in about 20 seconds. Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is February 12th, 2024, and this is our Macro Mondays live stream where we're going to take a look at Bitcoin on the longer term time frames and weave that into our daily analysis. We are going to start out with the daily stuff first. We'll also take a look at Dixie gold and traditional markets. We might follow up with a few things that we talked about last week as well. So we're going to jump over to the support and resistance chart here with Bollinger Bands. And we can see that Bitcoin has taken out the wick high over here. And that is intraday currently. And that wick high was at 49,100. And it has now touched off in the $50,000 range. Now it's only a little bit further for it to go up and hit this weekly here at 50,800. And then above there is a bit of resistance as well at the next weekly at 51.8. Now, this was all born upon the close above the March of 2022 bear market monthly swing high. We did see that close happen yesterday, Sunday, into today's candle Monday. And if we are going to see this move sustain and continue into the mid to low $50,000 region, this weekly region here at 50,800 to 51.8, and then there is another weekly swing high up here at around 53. I would expect if it is going to go and head up that way that it also hits somewhere in the mid $50,000 region. That is if we do see continuation on the daily through some of these important resistance areas overhead. Now on the other side of that, you can see that the March 2022 monthly swing high is an area that Bitcoin needs to hold. Not necessarily the wick high over here, but I'd kind of say between that swing high at around 48,240 to this monthly here at around $47,000, where we saw the daily close open come in just below that monthly region. I would want to see Bitcoin maintain above there in order for this breakout to be sustained in terms of its expansion to the upside. And of course, for further continuation into the mid to low $50,000 region and possibly more. We can see that the upper first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands is here at 46,350 or so. And it's right in between these two monthlies. So Bitcoin would have a chance if it did lose that monthly swing high at 48,240 to come down, hit this monthly at 47,000, possibly even dip into the zone here between the two monthlies at 47,000 to 45.5. But if it did begin to lose that area, you can see the smaller range prior to the deviation up to the monthly area and the deviation down to the monthly support. So the monthly resistance deviation, the monthly support deviation. If we did see 45.5 taken out or reclaimed by the bears, that would be this tighter consolidation range prior to those deviations. And I would be looking somewhere around the basis mid 44 to $44,000 region down to this weekly here at 43 2 to 300 again, possibly even further down to the next weekly at 41.8 and or the lower first, which is coming in down there all the way at 41,200. Now that would be quite a big rejection on the daily and higher term time frames. So let's go ahead and investigate a little bit more on a chart that does not have support and resistance. So this is our clean streaming chart here. And let's go out to the weekly and take a look at this weekly close that came in. And we're going to snap down a horizontal real quick here. And you can see that this weekly did take out the bear market lower high weekly close. So that was really the big the big lower high on the weekly as well there. That kind of defined that monthly bear market lower high, and that is coming in at 46,850. Bitcoin did close substantially above there. So when looking at support and resistance in this manner, we can determine that, the most likely price action would be between this high here and then the swing high above it, which has already been ran at that 48,240, and then we step it up to the next big area. The next big area would be this low weekly structure, which has been tested. This was what was tested directly on the wick high at 49,100. That's the low. Next area, we work up to the high here on a close, which is also these swing highs over here. And that is coming in at the 51.8 region, almost 52,000. It's 51,789, so 51.8. So that's at 50,000. Is right here on this close open, 50,800 rather, 51,800 is just above it at this weekly here. And then there is a smaller wick high up here. That's that swing high that I was talking about on the support and resistance chart at 53. So those are the next logical areas from the weekly perspective to be looking for after getting a close above this open and close high here from 2022, March of 2022, in fact. So above there, and you can see there's not much outside of the low side structures on the highs here on the closing on the closes at around $55,000 to $56,000 here. Then of course above there is some weekly closing highs between 57,500. We've got 58,900, almost 59,000 rather. And then we've got around 60,000 on the high here. And then of course the wick high at 65. We've got the closing high that came in slightly above there on the double top back in November of 2021. And we can see that this is at 65.5. And then of course the all-time high there at $69,000. So I would just take it some of these major support and resistance areas overhead, kind of one at a time. If Bitcoin can check them off on the daily and then subsequently close medium-term timeframes between the daily and weekly above those areas, then we're looking at continued expansion to the upside. Of course, if we did see this weekly upper first dropped, then we're looking right back to the basis band being available. And this is lining up generally with, the low side deviation on the daily there. So in this case, the upper first is above the weekly closes. So this is fair game, even to those weekly closes, which are coming in at around 44 to 44.5 on the wicks. And that upper first is at 45,282. So basically 45.3 I do suspect that if Bitcoin were to head back down and mean revert a bit, this would likely update to somewhere around $45,000, which is the wick high that was defining this range up here on a closing basis. So now that that's been broken and the close open structure over here from 2022 has been broken, we can see Bitcoin easily trading above its wick high here at that $49,000 region, and then giving us an updated view of the upper second standard deviation as well here at just over $51,000 at 51,200. Typically, when we see price expansion, so we have BBWP at a 13 over 10. When we see price expansion like this, and the Bollinger Bands are kind of in a parabolic phase right now. That does mean that Bitcoin can very easily get above that upper second and start running some of this area over here in the mid to low $50,000 region. That's really logical. And then if things get crazy, we're looking further up into the deeper $50,000 region towards 60. And that's all provided Bitcoin can, I would say, being generous, provided that Bitcoin can close the weekly specifically above around 45,000 to 45.5, which is also that monthly area here, which is this monthly zone basically. If we start to see that area drop, that would be substantially below the upper first on the daily. That would start to look a little bit more like mean reversion on the weekly as well. And at least in the time frames below the weekly. Now, if we go down through some of the time frames between the weekly and daily, like the 5-day here, we can see that we're getting expansion again. We have a 15 over 7 for BBWP. So we do have confirmed expansion at this point. I do believe we can double check this. This is RSI. We'll get back to RSI in just a moment. Let's go ahead and take a look at BBWP. So yeah, we do have confirmed expansion of BBWP. It is up over the moving average. We do need to see the next 5-day closure turn the moving average up as well. So that's the next bit of criteria that I want to see on something like a 5-day. And when we compare that to the weekly, you could see that, yes, the weekly BBWP is now up over the moving average. And again, the 5-day is just like an early indicator as to what we would expect to see on the weekly. And in this case, it is above the moving average. We would need to see this week close above that moving average, meaning BBWP up over this 5 SMA here. And then the SMA get a positive slope as well. Now, when working down below the weekly 5-day to the 4-day, you can see that this is confirmed expansion of price volatility. So BBWP is up over the moving average. Moving average has a positive slope. We're also looking at Bitcoin potentially in the next, after the Monday close, we're looking at Tuesday's candle here. So if Tuesday can close above the upper second at around $48,000, then we are looking at not just confirmed BBWP expansion, but confirmed Bollinger Band expansion. So continuation to the upside in this case. Now, if Bitcoin does lose $48,000, then generally I would be looking at expansion still possible to the upside as long as it's trading and closing candles above the basis to upper first. The basis to upper first would be aggressive expansion to the upside. And really aggressive expansion is that upper second at 48. Upper first is coming in at 45,665. If price starts to head back down towards it, it's likely going to end up at that monthly at 45.5 to around the daily wick high there, defining the smaller range, that being this wick high on the daily, which was also a wick high on the 4-day, which is at 45,000. We can see the basis has updated to 43,361. And kind of the line in the sand for this would be the lower first standard deviation, which is coming in at 41K. So really lining up with all of the areas that we talked about on the support and resistance chart as it relates to the daily time frame. Now, this is basically 9/10 of the way there confirmed, but we should go and check on a few other things as well. Let's look at the 3-day. We can see the 3-day did confirm its volatility expansion, and it has confirmed its BBWP expansion. So when looking at BBWP, you You can see that it's nicely up over the moving average here. It is in the 53 percentile range for volatility. Moving average chasing at around 28%. Very nice. That is what we want to see. And as that relates to the 4-day, of course, we want to see the 4-day follow through with Bollinger Band expansion now. That's it. We've got a cross to the upside on the Stoke. So this is a regular Stoke, not a Stoke RSI. So this is measuring close over close price action. We can see it's at $41,000. Again, that's a big pivot area. It's about 41.1, but we want to see, that 3-day, 4-day bleed over into the 5-day and weekly. So we are getting the early indications that, it's very likely that it will bleed over into those time frames, but we need to see Bitcoin specifically maintain the upper end of that deviation range if it does begin to pull back. Don't really want to see it below, 48, 240 all the way down to 45.5. If it starts to lose that big zone there, then there's probably a longer form pullback into what I would expect to be a long form consolidation. But as it stands right now, we're in an expansive phase, on the 3-day, 4-day. And, the 2-day is also in an expansive phase. We can see BBWP is up over the moving average. Moving average has a positive slope here. High volatility in terms of the BBWP or price volatility within the bands. We can see it's also pushing that upper second standard deviation. This is going to close with the 4-day. So I would want to see this close above the upper second, which is coming in at $49,000, basically right around this wick high. So, break that deviation wick high on a close. We're looking for more, right? And in this case, the upper first is starting to creep up here as well. This is at 46,350 or so. Another big area, of course, 46,350 is going to fall right in this monthly zone, right? So we can see that's also the upper first on the daily as it currently stands. So we want to see Bitcoin maintaining that monthly zone and the various Bollinger Band support levels in that zone as well. So we have a 2-day and a daily upper first in there, right around the same price level. Need to see that maintained for expansion to the upside. In this case, we've got pivot on the 2-day is at 43,572. Did we look at the 3-day? 3-day's at 166, basically 43.2, which, by the way, is this weekly. Oops, grab the wrong thing. Let's grab the actual arrow here. That's this weekly right here, just below the daily basis band. So just keep that in mind for the 3-day pivot. The 2-day pivot being, just slightly above there, 43.5 to 6. And then, of course, we've got the daily. Daily Stoke is in the overbought area. And what do I tell you about a regular Stoke? Regular Stokes can hang out in the overbought or oversold areas for extended periods of time. And whenever you see Stoke in the overbought and or oversold zone, you're looking at the biggest moves typically. This is going to be the biggest, this is the biggest move to the upside that we've seen in a while, as was the move over here to the downside, that deviation on the lows there. Now, where we had a bit of conflicting signals was back here. When we first saw Bitcoin enter this range over here at around that $44,000 to $45,000 high, I want you to note that we saw higher highs on price action but lower highs on Stoke. Yes, you can play divergences, and this is not like an RSI divergence. This is a pure close over close momentum divergence. So when it put in the deviation high there, and up to $49,000, it was throwing a lot of bear divs. Right now, we would want to see, bearish divergence develop on the momentum oscillator, the regular Stoke here. We would also want to see it develop here, which, by the way, BBWP is in liftoff mode with the moving average chasing here, coming in at, just under 90 there at 89 over a 74 to 75 on the moving average. Very, very nice. Now, we do see that on the daily RSI, you're going to see a lot of people go and, wow, look at all the divergence that's, bearish divergence that's going to populate. The thing is this is a fresh move off of the bearish control zone. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I'm seeing a lot of like, look at the bear divs, you got to sell now, blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, use your judgment. And you need to see confluence across various time frames and across various indicators that you use. You're looking for multiple confluences, not just one that could be an outlier. And I'm going to tell you how I look at this. Of course, not financial advice, but this was a trend change. So we have a new trend here on RSI. We had downtrending RSI. We had a trend break that's gone straight up. All right, so you can just use a trend line if you'd like. And for RSI, trend lines are perfectly acceptable. We can say like there's a trend line here, and there's another trend line here. Kind of give it a zone, and we had a downtrend right on RSI, which is while making higher highs on price, it's going to throw bearish divergences as you can see all over the place, and then bullish divergence on the other side if it can maintain the range. Well, this is a trend break, so I need to see drives of bearish divergence, not historical drives of bearish divergence, meaning hidden bull divs. So bullish divergence, hidden bullish divergence, or bearish divergence rather, hidden bearish divergence from this area of RSI over here is not going to be as powerful. Might lead to some pullbacks on the daily, but it's not as powerful as an in trend bearish divergence or regular bearish divergence locally off of the current move. So, that's basically what I'd be looking for. I like to see bearish divergence developing off of this trend break, which of course is a trend break off of the lows here from Bitcoin. Kind of hung around, got that trend break, but this is a new trend. This is a new uptrend. So it'd be natural to see pullbacks within the context of this trend. That is not the be all end all though. Doesn't mean that it's going to pull back and immediately drop. Of course, if it did and it took out the low at 38.5, well, big problems. We're looking much further down then. But in this case, our first expectation for this is be pull back into higher low structure. Well, what structure does it need to maintain? On a wick basis, 41,850 or so, right there by a weekly support. Of course, let's reference this over here. That's this 41.8 weekly right here. So big weekly area. Needs to maintain closures above that wick low. And you would prefer, and I'd prefer to see closures above the closing lows on the daily, and that's coming in at 42,500. So in this case, this is an uptrend. It is a new trend. I would need to see bearish divergence develop within this trend, along with, possibly some momentum divergence on a regular Stochastic as well. So that would be the confluence there for divergences. Now, of course, we're not just looking at one thing. The criteria is going to be trend first, support and resistance, volatility, which we point out with the bands here, the volatility levels of the bands, which is the Bollinger Band volatility levels, the upper first, second, and third. So if it does begin to lose the upper first, then we're looking towards the basis, but the basis is above the most recent breakout. And that's coming in at 43,750, 43.8, likely going to update to, the 44 to 44.5 region at close today if Bitcoin can close above the upper second especially. So, mean reversion back to the basis still puts this in a strong position. So I would not, get overly bearish if I saw that. Where things would get bearish is if we broke below this structure low, that weekly at 41.8, lower high, and then take out the low, and or just come straight down and take out that deviation low at 38.5. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and pull a fib on this and see how this move is lining up in terms of support and resistance with fibs. We can see that the 618 is above the smaller breakout zone prior to the deviation at the highs and the lows here. And that's coming in at 45.5. Go figure, if we were to pull this over here, 45.5 happens to be what? Happens to be that monthly right there. It's lining up perfectly. So very nice. It's falling all into place with confluence at support and resistance. We can see that the 50% Fib is down here at $44,000, just above the basis band here, which is also very encouraging. We're getting confluences there. I do want to see that lower first standard deviation on the daily start to get above the weekly there, and that spike wick low at 41,850 or so to the 382 level here at around that 42.5 to 42,660, which is where the 382 currently is. That would give me confidence that if Bitcoin was going to come back down and breach below the basis, we got to look right for that support area, big fibs, and support around that lower first standard deviation. Now, if this is going to continue and it does break above its current wick high, I wouldn't use the move in and of itself right now as the basis for that. I would actually pull this over to the wick high of the deviation to wick low for continuation targets, and it just so happens that the 1272 is lining up pretty well with that area at around 50,800 where there's weekly resistance, 51.8, and then there is the wick high at 53K. This coming in, kind of splitting the difference between all of them at 52,460. Above there, we can see the 1414 is coming in at $54,000 to the 1618, which is coming in at 57. Sometimes, if we were to see this just really blast off, really get that expansion going on those medium-term time frames that bleed into the weekly, then we can start targeting daily moves up to the 786 to 1888, which is your $59.5 to $60,000 level. Two spot is up there at the 62 level, but between now and then, I would expect some sort of a daily pullback, even if it's into a swing higher low structure, not even a closing higher low. Maybe things just go sideways. We get a swing high, swing low, and a wick, and things close sideways. Then I'd come back and just remeasure that with a trend fib as it stands right now, because that's something that we do want to pay attention to. We can also take this fib down to the smaller move off of the deviation low, and you can see that Bitcoin came up and tagged the 1618 after getting above the 100% here, which is the current basis band, the wick high of that 43,900 to 44K, and came up, beat that, came right up to the 1272, closed just below it, took off through that and the 1414 to the 1618, got above that, immediately went up to the 1786, paused there, back tested the 1618, through the 1888 to the 2 spot, and then above there you can see off of the local move, where's the next big area? 272 lines up perfectly with that weekly at 51.8. Yes, there is a shorter term weekly there at 50,800. I only reference that for lower term time frames. The bigger one would be that swing high from 2021 on the weekly close at 51.8. And then if you look above there, where was the wick high? It was at just under $53,000. Well, the 2414 is lining up at 52,700 to 800. So getting a ton of confluences. And if you want to see that, just kind of makes a mess here. But if you want to see how that looks on the support and resistance chart, just a smaller continuation fib, you can see that everything is lining up perfectly overhead. 272 at that weekly at 51.8 to the swing high at just under 53. So we have confluence after confluence just kind of pointing to those upside areas, but we do need to be cognizant again of those downside areas. Do not want to see Bitcoin losing the weekly there at around 45.5. I'm sorry, that's a monthly. I'm still a little under the weather. My bad. Got a lot of cold medicine in my system here, but 45.5 to that monthly top side area at 47. That area, in my opinion, for the sustainability of this move at the very least, needs to be held. So some people might have their invalidation criteria higher, maybe even the wick high at 49 to the monthly swing high at 48,240. That's fine. To each their own. Mine is a little bit further down into the supports there. We have not gone wrong referencing longer term time frame supports. In fact, just a reference, what did we talk about back here during these breakouts? Each level, point by point, weekly, monthly, which area was resistance, monthly at 38.5, which area got spiked almost exactly 38.5, right? Which areas held as resistance, even though they got wicked through the monthlies up here. So horizontal support and resistance is your friend. You can tighten up targets on lower term timeframes during your trading based on some of the things that we talked about on Friday. So as it stands right now, looks beautiful. Did we get any other higher term time frame closures? Yeah, we got a 2-week, and the 2-week is getting continuation to the upside. We had the upper first get spiked. We saw a close back above the upper second here, and now it's trading above that upper second. If we see this close above the upper second on the 2-week, that would take out the 2-week high structure, just giving us the wick highs here. So 53 is very much in the cards. Maybe some order block resistance on the top side here. I think it's actually above it. No, it's above it. So this was where this was resistance at that first high after putting in that Wyckoff reaccumulation on the daily to new all-time highs there back in 2021. So this is already trading above the 2-week closing highs, which is also where that wick high came in on the daily, and of course the 2-week chart here at 49K. So realistically, it's right on, it's right where it needs to be. The next big area is just the wick highs at 53. Take out 53. We're looking at the low side closes over here. Again, that's in the mid $50,000 range, and that's the next big area we're looking for. Mid to low $50,000 range, and then very easy, step it up. We're looking mid to upper $50,000 range towards 60. Above there, we're pretty much looking at the all-time highs getting ran, and possibly higher. We are coming into the halving as well, so this would be a little bit uncharacteristic in some respects. And the some respects part that I'm going to talk about here is a chart that I've shown you a few times, just something to be aware of. And I did mention, this time could be different. And that's cycle expansion. Every single time, this is, Bitcoin is doing, it's doing what we had previously discussed. Bear market, lower high and a close usually gets ran. Bitcoin tags the upper first on the monthly and then takes off. We saw this back in, this was the 14 bear market lower high, the first bear market lower high on a close. Comes up, swings it, comes back down, finds support on the upper first, continues expansion in this case. Just prior to expansion of the Bollinger Bands, the bear market lower high, which, yes, it was a bear market. It was the first closing bear market lower high. We had swing lower highs and lower lows here, but no bear market lower high close that was a significant close from high, from low to high. And in this case, that came in on that 2019 top, mid-cycle top there. That was the first bear market closing lower high. We saw it swung in 2020. Bitcoin came back down to the upper first and then expansion onto new all-time highs. What did we see this time? Well, we could be seeing something different. That is where we see the bear market lower high, in this case of 2022, and Bitcoin did swing it, but it has not headed down to the upper first. Now, the upper first is at $37,000 now. So that's a big area, right? And that $37,000 is the right around the monthly level here, 37,200 right now. And we've got, 38,500 just above it here. So we kind of already saw that area tagged in the prior monthly, but we have not seen Bitcoin swing back down to basically refuel around that upper first. It's just trying to move on through with expansion. This is uncharacteristic of what we have observed in Bitcoin and, quite frankly, many other things. This is, if it does close above here, it's what I'm trying to tell you is it's really bullish. And I would be looking for the all-time high to get ran sooner than later before Bitcoin comes back and tests the upper first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Now, doesn't mean that it's going to happen. It could still, this could turn into a wick this month, and it could still come back down and test that upper first. And it does often test through it to lower supports. I'd be looking down to just underneath it at around $35,000 at this low on a close, but it could dip further. And but if it closes above there, this is considered an outlier case. Something new, something different is happening, and we are seeing that change that we've talked about in Bitcoin many, many times. So this would be exciting. I like seeing new things on assets and indices, and this would be something very new, and give us some more data for the future. It would probably mean that this is going to be in a much bigger structure than I think most expect. I think, I quite honestly, just to give you my personal thoughts on this, I have talked about this with you guys before, but I believe that Bitcoin is in a macro monthly accumulation period where we could see deviations outside of the monthlies here at 61 to 69 on the wick. We could see deviations, into the $100,000 area, even low $100,000 area that comes right back in, and then everybody's calling for multi-year bear markets. When in reality, this is just yes, it's a big bear cycle in the context of a monthly, but I think we're looking at like a really massive, massive accumulation structure if that were to happen. If it gets further than like the mid $100,000 range, then we're probably looking at a parabola structure that comes crashing down, multi-year bear market anyway, just consolidation, I would believe, at a much higher level. But personal thoughts and feelings on this, I do think we are looking at a much bigger accumulation structure, and that primarily has to do with the look on the monthly here. Again, when Bitcoin gets into the overbought zone on Stoke, we're looking at some of the biggest moves occurring in these areas. And just like in the oversold zone, current pivot on the monthly is 40,500. That's going to update pretty aggressively if Bitcoin closes above the upper second standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands on the monthly again. So did want to tie that into the longer term timeframes. This is exciting stuff. Bitcoin getting a little bit of a lower term time frame pullback from that $50,000 region. All good. Just watch it closely. One of the bigger things is going to some of the medium term time frames below the daily here. This thing is not yet ready to come down, but could very easily. It hasn't really thrown a real high, but this could potentially start to come down soon if we do start to see closes back below, the 48 to $47,000 area. This is coming in. This last low is coming in at 47,751. So if that area was taken out, it's right back into this range, and then just keep an eye on it. You want it to take out the range highs and go for this high here if it doesn't just get continuation, that is. In this case, 64 over 48, it's just back testing the upper first. It's getting re-expansion, so this is just starting. Let's look at BBWP real quick. And yes, Stoke is up there, but Stoke is bullish right now, so I'm not concerned about that. It's more about expansion, and we're seeing confirmed expansion. As long as this is trading and closing candles above the upper first and basis, this is going to be very bullish. And the upper first is at 48,800 to the basis there, coming in at $48,000. So again, we're looking at that monthly area. As long as it can remain above that wick high would be your warning at 48,240. If it starts to reclaim that bear market wick high, then we're looking to 47,000 at the monthly to 45.5 as the area of potential liquidity down below. So that's gonna pretty much wrap it on the Bitcoin front here. You can keep an eye on some of the other time frames. One of the bigger ones that we always look at, just for reference, is the 12-hour. We called out this 12-hour expansion to the upside as likely going to hit the highs and higher. We called out last week that if it starts to close above 47 and then take out that wick high, we're looking at $49 to $50,000, possibly mid to low 50s. So we were right on that. Got that off of this beautiful compression on the 12-hour as it related to some of the lower term timeframes, and of course that led into the daily. Looks good. Looks good. It's a beautiful move off the lows. Just for reference, this move off the lows is, for those that were looking for this to come down, they missed out on a 30% move. So good on you guys. For those that were being all bearish at a monthly support at 38.5, when Bitcoin has literally tagged monthly supports like back here prior to finding resistance, tag that monthly, weekly directly, does the same damn thing again, and yet they're still screaming for 10, 12K. I mean, sometimes you just can't fix stupid. So why try? Dixie. Dixie found significant resistance in our zone here after tagging 104.5. It is still trading above the upper first, at least as it stands right now. If it does begin to lose this at 104, I would look down just slightly here to 103.5 to 103.66. Below there, the lower first. As long as it's above there, it's still actually kind of bullish. You wouldn't want to see a bearish reclaim if you're bullish on this going up, but as long as it's above the lower first, and quite frankly, even if it holds the lower second at 103 to 102.91, it's looking fine. If it does lose that area, that's where we're looking, 102.5 back to 102 even pretty quickly, in my opinion. But it's in the strong half of the bands. If it does start closing back above, about 104.40 to 104.5, we're looking up to 105 to that 105.38 to 105.60. So basically 105.40 to 105.60, bracketing 105.5 there, and then above there 106. Now, that's not the first take on this, at least as long as it's trading below 104.5. And again, below 104.46 here, it's downside momentum, but the weekly is still very strong. The one thing that I do have to keep pointing out here is it's rejecting the basis band. Now, it did close open above it because the basis band is moving against it, and now we have the upper first right in that 105.5 range. So it can head back up there and just lower high. And in fact, the upper second there is coming in around that high. So even if it did just blast off to 106 to 107 area, the upper second's right there, and likely, it was already a rejective area, likely to remain a rejective area. But if it can, get above the basis and trade above it, it does have the opportunity, I think, to somewhere around that. If it's trading above 104.5, we're looking 105, 106 area as being the potential here around that upper first. If it does remain below the basis band, daily starts to fall apart. You can see the lower first is there at 102.43. So basically 102.5, like we talked about on the daily, down to around 102 is where I'd be looking. Below there on the weekly, though, it would open up the lows again all the way down to 101 and lower. So Dixie looking a little weak here. But as long as it's in the strong half of the bands, we wait to see what happens. Let's go ahead and look at gold. Gold not looking too bad here. It is losing the basis, though, and tagging into that lower standard deviation area around the 2015 $16 weekly area by the lower first. If it loses it, we're looking at that lower second. This is a compressive phase, so if it starts to lose the lower second on a close, and specifically the wick low here at 2001, then we're looking for this to probably get expansion down into the 19 1980 to 1960, 65 area. Below there, it's back down into the low 1900s. So, 1930 to 1940 or so. If it can maintain structure though here, or even just deviate the lows, um, then I would, start to look back to this area where it's trading now. If it can trade back above the basis from its current position at $2,030, keep an eye on 2035 to the upper first there at 2038 to 40. And then the upper second at 2050. Above there, we're looking for expansion to this high side structure, in the 2060 to 2065 region. Above 2065, we're targeting 2080 to 2100. Above there, we're looking for this wick to get filled out to around 2150. Downward pressure on closes below 2034. So that, of course, 2034 is this line right here. So this is a weekly resistance area. And the upper first is sitting just above it right now. So it is a little bit more bearish bias, but if it can hold here and then start to regain the basis and upper standard deviations, then we're looking for this to, at minimum, go and try and test that high up there in the deeper 2050, 2065 area. All right. Weekly is kind of the more concerning thing if you're a gold bug, because it is in and around the basis. And the only thing that's really concerning is if it drops the local daily low area where it's consolidating, then I would be looking to that lower first. And we can see that we're getting compression. It's a BBWP even is at 1.58 with the moving average chasing, because we got expansion up. First it was expansion down, then mean reversion to expansion to the top side. Now we're getting compression again. When looking at BBWP, if it's going to let me, we can see that it's baking. It's cooking up another move on gold. Now, this is a weekly, so this can take some time. Now, as it stands right now, you want to see gold consolidate. You want to see it around the basis band. You want to see it holding between the basis band and upper first to really set this move up. If it were to start dropping through that lower first, it can get saved around that support area at around 1930 to 1940. Below there, though, it's in danger around 1900, because if it starts to close below there, it would be expansion right back to this low down here at 18 to 18 and a half or so. It's 1800 to at 1832. But it is above the basis. Just be aware of the downside risk, even though it is in a bullish position. Yes, Stoke has turned against it. Yes, there's a whole bunch of bear divs that were popping off, but it's consolidating, and it's consolidating in a strong position. But you do need to be aware of that downside. As it currently stands, unless it can regain that 2080 bucks, which is basically, if it's trading below this weekly close open at 2071 to this other historical weekly close up here at 2081, we're not looking for momentum to shift on the daily. At least not in a confirmed manner for Stoke. At least we can, get the bias for if it closes back above 2040 bucks on the weekly, then we're looking at this as setting a closing low and a swing low structure in the context of a consolidation. And then we look for that daily time frame to break out with expansion to the upside towards that 2080, 2100 area, and then possibly more. All right, so that's gold. Yeah, Jimmy, I know you wanted me to give a longer explanation. That's why I hung on that one for a little bit longer. All right, so we got Dow. Dow is continuing to make new all-time highs. It's in price discovery right now. This is probably lining up with that deviation that we were talking about. Yeah, so it just hit the 786 today. Um, that smaller deviation. If you were going to really get this, we're going to look at the weekly here. If you're going to take this structure, you could do a few different things. But right now, as long as it's, we're going to do a fib on this. Yeah, as long as it's above the weekly basis band, this is strong as F. And that's at 36,300 right now. And that's the 618 of the fib. I mean, shit, it could come all the way back to the support. That's the 50% fib now. The support is at, this was the prior high, so generally be seen as support on the weekly as it's the most recent. That's at 35.5. So Dow looks very strong. It is cooling down while remaining above the upper first, upper second. Anytime you see this, it's in price discovery. It's when it does come down and finally put in highs, it'll chop around, maybe even make higher highs. But then you'll start to see the end of that cycle on the weekly. And daily looks good so far. It is again doing the same thing. It's getting price. BBWP metrics are cooling down in the context of it holding the upper first, upper second. So this is just price discovery. It's a beautiful march up. We've seen this many, many times. It can mean revert back to the lower first now, and it's above the prior range breakout at 37,730, 37,800 area, and it's fine. That's also where it found support the last time. So the lower first would be the area that I'd want to see it hold if we did see the upper first and basis lost. And right now it's giving us that target of around 39,100. Did we hit our target today at so 38,930? Big target's going to be 39 to 39.1, possibly 39.2 up here at the upper second to the upside. However, if it does drop the upper first here at 38,640, I would generally be targeting this swing low on a close at 38,380 to right around the basis band at 38.2 or so. If it dropped 38.2, we're looking at this high side structure getting tagged again in the upper 37s. If that fell apart, we're looking back to the deviation here by the lower second in the lower 37s at around 37.2 to 3. Looks good. It's not worth looking at momentum right now, close over close, because it's just going to be stuck to the top side across every time frame rather. We can see that we had NASDAQ, doing the same thing. NASDAQ's been a little bit nicer in coming back to its lower first. Its lower first is now in line with this last higher low structure at 17,128. I'd rather see it above, but it's currently trading it's trading above the upper first, so we're likely to see that lower first move above this last higher low on a close, and that'd be preferable, and that's what we want to see. This is good as long as it's above the basis. That's at around 17,450 to 17,500. And of course, being above the upper first means that it's probably going to keep testing the highs and higher. And above the upper first here, to remain above it, it's around 17,762 to 17,800 is what I'm going to call it. Did we hit our target? Yes, we did. 1841 after that spike just below 18. So we finally hit our 18,000 target. We've got a rough target of 18 to 18.1. Above there, 18, 2 to 4 basically. And we can see that 18.1 is still going to be the primary upper second target even coming into tomorrow. And as long as it's above the lower first and this last higher low at 17,100, it's looking good to keep testing up. If it starts to fail that area or come back into this high side range after losing the upper first and it doesn't hang on to around 17.5, then we're looking at that area with the possibility of heading back into the upper 16s. We got that 16,969, nice, to around the prior all-time high, which the daily upper second standard deviation is currently above, and that is currently coming in at 16,764. So very good to see that. That likely implies further continuation provided Bitcoin can stay above the areas that I just spoke about. Right now, I'd call the pivot at around 17 and a half. Looks looks like it could come down after that spike to 18,000 for Stoke. Stoke divergences, not really. We're also seeing price volatility expansion within the context of it being above the upper first. So this could just hang out above the upper first and continue getting volatility expansion. Looks very good right now in that regard. Again, provided it stays above the daily upper first and preferably the weekly upper first here, which is currently right around those lows. It's slightly above that deviation low that I was talking about on the daily, or that higher low structure, if you like. And that is at 17,300. That structure's around 17, 1 to 2. And in this case, the upper first, as long as it's above there on the weekly close, looking good to keep testing that upper second, which is giving us our targets, our deeper targets there at around 18.4 to 5. So I would take it 18.2 to 4 if it can get above 18.1. That being from the daily perspective. Then I'd take it to 18.2 to 4. Above there, we're probably looking at 18.4 to 6 range around that weekly upper second. Looks beautiful. There's not too much more to say about that. SPY, trading at 500 points. We hit our target 500 to 505. We got 503, 50 on the wick high from earlier today. Very nice. Again, from the daily, it's the same kind of thing. As long as it's above 480 to 483, it's fine to keep going. Do you want to see it lose those areas? No, because then that's any kind of spike back up likely to result in a lower high. Not always, but it's very likely. And then consolidation or distribution from there. But in this case, very strong above 491 to the upper first at 495, 96 area. Upper first is actually at 496.55. And that looks beautiful. So basically 490, where the basis band is, it starts to lose that area. It's likely going to head towards the 485 to 480 region. So you do want to see SPY holding on to that upper first and somewhere around the 495 to 491 area. So these two closing highs here. And, from there, I would expect it to keep running if it can hold those areas. That criteria will continuously march up with structure. So we'll revisit this even on Wednesday. You can see 501 is the momentum pivot for the daily. It's going to keep chasing. It's same for the weekly here. The weekly's upper first is right there at 487 to 488 area. So it's on the lower end of that, or it's right around the daily basis band, to be quite frank. So, there is a chance, but I do think on the daily, if it was going to get there, it's probably going for the full thing, try and retest the all-time high at 480. That's a personal opinion. I would have to see it dropping the 490 area and then 488 subsequently there at the basis. Below there is where I think 480 to 485 is the most likely target area. The weekly is giving us updated targets now to the top side of around 512. So above 505, we're looking to 505 to 510 being the range. And then, of course, from there, we're looking 510 to 515. Like I said, and I've been saying, every single live stream, take it 5 points at a time with SPY right now. Looks beautiful. And, it's could use a pullback. And that would be unsurprising. And, of course, whenever this pulls back, it's going to be skies falling everywhere, just like on Bitcoin. So understand that. That will be the narrative, is screaming and crying and throwing a fit and lots of doom, lots of gloom. Maybe it'll be justified, maybe it won't. In most cases, structure is what matters, and unless something fundamentally changes with the economy, I'm not looking for anything to really break established structure, especially on the weekly. Still, we could get hellacious pullbacks on traditional markets, and it would still be a drop in the bucket in terms of structure. It could still be well within higher low structure. And then back to Bitcoin here. Because I am a little under the weather today, I'm going to be ending the stream shortly here. Typically, I would hang out, talk with you guys for a little bit, and maybe even take requests, like I have been trying to do again lately. I will go through and just read chat real quick here, but I'm gonna get the music rolling, and let's see. We'll get the music rolling. Let me look through chat real quick just to see if there's any burning questions anybody has. I'm not gonna look into alts today. I will do that on Wednesday. You want a substantial pullback on Bitcoin anyway to see how alts are going to react. They're probably doing well, if I had to guess. I know that I'm in a few that are doing very well, and but I can specifically do some TA and some alts for you on Wednesday. Hopefully this will be resolved by then. All right, let me get over here to the chats. All right. What do we got here? Hi, Sam. Hello, Spin. Hello, Roka. Cheryl, nice to see you again. Yes, Link and AVAX are doing well. I have quite a few alt trades open that are doing very, very well. Jedi, yes, you're late. You were late when you posted that message, but you're good now. Hello, Ivan. And yeah, it looks like Sam. I appreciate that, Sam. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's too many questions, just lots of hellos and some anecdotal observations. Yeah, I'm sorry, Sam. I just don't have it in me to go looking through charts right now on the alt side. Link is doing what we talked about last week. You can go back and just rewatch the Friday stream. I'm in Link trades, so I can tell you right now it's doing exactly what we talked about. I think it was Friday that I looked at it for you, but I will check up on it on Wednesday. Just I'm fading fast right now, so I do appreciate everyone hanging out across the various chats here. I've got an absolute ton of you guys over there in the private chat. I'm sorry. I usually will call in to do a conference call with you guys after, but I just can't today. Jimmy already knows. He has the slide decks for Series 24 and 57 certifications. So for those of you, or licenses, for those of you that are taking any Series 24s, you're not going to be up until at minimum end of first quarter anyway, so you have plenty of time to study for the market maker exam. For those of you doing Series 57, I should be available later this week for test prep. Yeah, cool. Just make sure you guys are getting you have your test vouchers. Make sure you're organized with any of the prep tests that you're taking. Get that rolling, okay? All right, cool. For those of you that might be new, I do train Series 24 and 57 FINRA students. So people who are going to take their market maker exam license and their charting technician's licenses. I assist with some training there. And no, I cannot. I don't train anybody outside of the financial industry. So you have to be in the financial industry, and you have to, at minimum, already have a FINRA license. At minimum, SIE is the minimum license that you need to have. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you do need to get sponsored and or be working in industry with a company that can sponsor your license. Yes. You can take some of these tests without a sponsor, but you need a sponsor for the ones that I'm helping with. Yes. Yes. Actively licensed sponsor. Yep. Cool. All right. That's going to do it for me today. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. I will have the stream up, kind of after stream tunes going on here. I'll leave them on. I'll turn them up a little bit for those of you that like to review what we talked about in today's live stream. So that is getting set up right now. And yeah, with all of that said, again, thanks for hanging out. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, and I hope you have a great week coming up. So, yeah, with all that said, thank you, take care, and Landy out.